All right. Hello, everyone. I can see the participants flowing in here. We've got 23 in, so let's give it 2 minutes for the stragglers and we will then jump into the panel. Very excited for this.
We would love to hear in the chat where you're calling in from today. So feel free to put your location.
I'm calling in from New Jersey. Hey, everybody.
I'm here in San Francisco.
I'm in London.
Wow.
And where are you calling in from?
And I'm across the pond from Dave in New York City here.
We got North Carolina in the chat, Amsterdam in the chat, San
Nice.
Francisco, San Francisco represent, Boston, LA, Toronto, Kiev,
Yeah,
Salvador,
nice.
San Jose. Given the global audience, Irina, you might need to clarify which San Jose, since we've got El Salvador and Mexico represented as well. But I assume that's San Jose, California.
Alessio Florence, I'm jealous. This really is a very global audience. It's amazing.
I'm trying to think who I'm the furthest from that's joining us.
Fairbanks, Alaska. You're closer to Alaska than
Yeah,
like
I think Amsterdam that might be the furthest at the moment.
We've got Ukraine.
Ukraine is up there.
Awesome. All right, folks, let's jump in. Oh, Johannesburg. I think that's the furthest one out. Welcome, Jonathan. Awesome. So, look, we've got a stacked lineup here and a full docket. So, really excited to jump in here by way of a quick intro. I'm Enda, co-founder and COO here at Sequence. And today I'm guiding a webinar with three panelists who are going to talk through how agents are transforming the modern CFO office. By way of a brief intro, I think, as many people here will be aware, we're at a really exciting point of time when it comes to how agents, agentic AI is being deployed within the CFO office right now. We've come through an era where legacy software was being built for humans to click around, and we've now entered a space where we're building software where we configure agents and teach them how to use the software themselves. And this represents a fundamental shift to how teams are building software, including the three panelists that you're going to hear from today. Agents in general, I think, are still in a somewhat primitive state, but as you'll see today, there's been a lot of very exciting developments that have happened in recent months and quarters. But modern finance teams, as we're all seeing across our three teams at least, they are increasingly betting on high velocity teams to bring them at the forefront of what agents are capable of. And we're going to hear across a range of the operational challenges and opportunities that exist across AP, AR, quote to cash, the ERP. And, I think part of the challenge of building agents is ensuring that they have the required context to perform these accurate workflows at scale. So we're going to also hear about how Campfire, Sequence, and Ramp are all leveraging their context and their agents to transform the processes that they're servicing within the CFO office. So with the three leaders we have joining us today, I'm going to hand off to Dave, first of all, to kick us off. We're going to start with a round of short demos from each of the panelists, because I think everyone here is really excited to see what's coming off the shelves from all three companies here. And then we're going to gradually transition into a panel and also obviously want to open up to a Q&A as well. I have a long list of questions, but I selfishly don't want to hog the entire agenda. So we'll open it up to a Q&A as well to give everyone here a chance to pepper the panelists. So with that, Dave, I'll hand over to you and we'll
yeah,
kick
of
off the
course.
demos.
Everybody, I'm gonna get up here, but Dave Wieseneck from Ramp, and I want to talk for a few minutes quickly. I have a few slides that I'll show the demos. AI chatbots is how most of us have been interacting with AI over the last year, 2 years. Really, ChatGPT came out. So think Perplexity, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, right? There are all of these boxes where it says ask anything, and you have to prompt, give context, expectations, all in a box. And I don't know about you, I'm not a writer, so I get writer's block. And I think part of the reason why we have not seen such a huge growth in using AI in the finance department is because this is not the right user interface for AI. Rather, we want AI to be built into the workflows of the systems that we're already using, whether that's Sequence, Campfire, or Ramp. And so over the next couple of years, you're really going to see this growth from where we are today, which is like definitely seeing AI chatbots doing a lot of automation, a lot of really great ideas, but you're going to start to see autonomous agents really take off. Autonomous agents using AI, but really instead of being deterministic type of workflows, rule-based type of workflows, automations, they're going to be reasoning and thinking, have access to prompts, context, and then of course tools to do work that a human would do. So I want to showcase the first agent from Ramp. This is now behind, I think, beta release to starting with a few hundred, but this will be out to a lot more customers very soon. Let me switch over. Got to stop sharing here. I have to start sharing my demo instance. Let me know if you can see Ramp at the moment.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So actually, I don't want to do that. I apologize, guys. Give me 1 second. Gotta go back here. Okay. With the policy agent, this is going to be T&E type of review, right? So Ramp is known for card transactions, reimbursements. And so the first agent we have is really helping the manager, whether that's a finance manager or department manager, do their expense reviews. Today, every single transaction going through expense review is going to that manager, right? So they may have hundreds of transactions, and they may not know your expense policy very well. It may not be consistently applied from one manager to another. Those managers can do 50, maybe even 100 expenses in one go. With agents now, we're able to do thousands of transactions where the agent is now working 24/7 and consistently applying your expense policy throughout. So if you have 100 transactions, really you can have an agent handle 80, 85, 90% of transactions. And so that you as a human or your team, your managers, really only focus on the 10 to 15% where there is high or low confidence in an approval decision and therefore needs human review. These are the transactions that we really want to be taking a look at, and we don't want to automate quite yet. So let me go over to the product. This is Ramp, and you can see this is the homepage, David, and I am playing the role of a manager that is reviewing expenses. And as you can see, the system is going to flag to me transactions that it has high confidence that approval is recommended, and then transactions where it needs a little bit more review, right? Unsure or maybe need to reject these expenses. So let's take a look at a transaction where it is flagged in policy, all good, right? Approval recommended. It has reviewed the receipt. It has auto-verified the receipt, the amount, the date, the merchant. Amazing. Cool. But really the important thing is that it's reviewed it against my expense policy. Here's my expense policy. It has reviewed what is in and out of policy. And based on the context that it has here and within the receipt, it is determined that this is in policy and is an easy one for us to approve. Here I'm David Wallace. That's my demo name. And I can quickly approve it. Why? Because I don't have to do too much review. The AI has done the review for me and given me a high confidence approval decision. It still hasn't taken action for me, right? I'm going to take action on this one. Let's go to another one. Let's go to one where it didn't have high confidence and maybe it's recommending additional review. Here, it's taken a look at the transaction, which is $276, and it's not quite sure if this is in policy or not. Why? Well, attendees were not added. but it can tell, and I didn't notice this, but if we zoom in here, there were actually 4 guests. It means there were 4 people attending this dinner. And per our policy, that would be in policy, $276 amongst 4 people. That's within the per diem of the policy, but it wasn't sure. So this one, it's a little yellow. It's going to send it off to me, David Wallace, and say, hey, not really sure. You might want to approve, you might want to reject, but a human should take a look at this. Let's take and of course, link to the policy here, the specific part of the policy. Let's go take a look at another one. This is where the recommendation was to reject. Why? Because gift cards, it was for Airbnb gift cards, is explicitly not allowed per the policy. Expenses never allowed, gift cards of any type. In addition, even though it looks like it's verified amount, verified date, verified merchant, it noticed that this is an AI generated receipt. And again, AI generated receipt is not allowed, and we asked it to flag. So this is one where, again, it's now recommending that I reject. I'm going to reject and request repayment because this is out of policy. All of these recommendations are helping me as a manager do my job, but I actually want to take a step further. So how did we get this in? The first step to do is, of course, to load in our expense policy. This is the expense policy. You might have a Notion or Word doc or PDF you sent out to your team. You're going to load it in here. These are all of your rules. This is the brains behind that AI about what is in policy and what is out of policy. During onboarding, we help you get this into the right place. But the important thing is now to deploy this agent. Before the agent was deployed, it was just helping me kind of with a recommendation. But here I want to deploy the agent. So if the expense type is a card transaction and it's more than $0, I can easily add an approver, David Wallace. Okay. But instead, what I want to do is deploy an agent. This is the policy agent, and it will review if it has high confidence, right? If it's green. And if it's yellow or red, it's going to escalate to a human, right? Escalate to David Wallace. And the amazing part about this is you are in control. You can add any conditions to set when you want the agent to help you make a decision versus make the decision for you and your team. So you can say, have the agent, come in if it's under $100, have the agent make the decision. If it's over $100, that's where you want a human no matter what. And over time, and as you get more confident using this agent, you're going to want to deploy the agent to do more work. That's our policy agent. Let me just switch back really quick to the deck. We also will be deploying agents into accounts payable, think bill pay, both for invoice coding. So we've had OCR for a long time, but now the OCR can reason and really understand what is on the invoice and help you with the coding if you're an AP specialist. And then for the managers that are approving their accounts payable, help them with an approval decision, just like we saw on the T&E side. And then we're going to be deploying the similar type of thing to procurement, right? Now, the interesting thing with procurement, you usually have a bunch of different approvers. Think InfoSec and IT, or legal is going to review. Instead of doing it sequential, where it's like legal reviews, then InfoSec, then budget, right? Why don't we deploy agents to do all of that review at the same time and give that team either a recommended approval decision or rejection decision, or if you feel confident, and the agent has enough confidence, make that decision for you. So we're going to be deploying these agents. Again, we will seed in about 95% of the prompt, and then you bring your specifics from your company, what's important to you for that last mile of prompting. So those are the agents that we're deploying right now amongst T&E, accounts payable, and procurement.
Awesome, Dave. Thanks so much. And yeah, excited to put those into practice at our internal process at Sequence as well, given we're on ramp. Riya, handing over to you for the 10-minute Sequence demo. You're on mute, Riya.
Great start. Thanks so much, Dave. That was awesome. And we're very happy users at Ramp. So great to see some of that stuff. So teams, what Ramp are doing for AP and spend, consolidating, automating, that side of things we're doing for revenue. Very quick intro as to who we are. So we are a billing order to cash platform that helps teams manage all of their revenue operations in one place. Our product suite spans CPQ, where companies can create quotes, contracts, billing and invoicing, and revenue recognition against these custom contracts in the business. The suite is entirely modular and really kind of at our core, our very strong USP is that we support really any type of custom contract or pricing structure. So you can bill, invoice, and quote for, whatever pricing model you're selling with and whatever contract structure your team is deploying, and really kind of achieve this very streamlined workflow all the way from your CRM on one side to your ERP on the other. Dave, I think kind of touched on this, but what we see for the finance teams that we're working with is that revenue collection is a lot of busy work. And some of these processes of reviewing contract data, going into Salesforce and kind of checking the terms of a contract, billing, invoicing customers, chasing payments, understanding kind of what's overdue, managing revenue recognition. This is work that takes huge amount of manual effort and actually can be very error prone, especially in a world where you have different contracts across all over your customer base. And we are really excited to be embedding AI and agents kind of in these core financial operations alongside human operators to really help complete this work in minutes in parallel, with kind of complete human oversight. So really excited today. I'm going to share kind of a few examples of those agents that operate across revenue AR. As we talk through these, I'm going to really showcase how and why they're finance grade and really domain specific. Back to the chatbot example that Dave shared, the context matters. We have access to contract, pricing, product data, revenue data, and the fact that the agents are enriched with this context means that they're really able to conduct these operations with accuracy, and successfully actually aid finance operators to get their work done. And then kind of really we think about these agents and AI as being very much sort of embedded in core operations, augmenting finance teams and giving a strong degree of oversight in every action. We have this notion of a watchtower, which I'm going to show you in a second, where you can essentially review every piece of work that an agent is doing, and things that are going to be flagged to you for review will be surfaced. So the three things I'm going to show you today, the first is our contract intake agent, where we can essentially pull in sales contracts from anywhere to automate billing and invoicing. Our revenue recognition agent, which assists in the revenue recognition process, and I'm going to show you where and how it does that. And our dunning agent, which essentially lets agents handle collections, helps you get paid faster without the manual intervention. So with that, I'm going to jump into the product. Can you see my home screen, everybody? Yep. Amazing. So I'm in a Sequence Sandbox account, Wrath to SaaS. Not sure who named that one. And we're going to start actually with the contract intake agent. So I'm going to just pull in an example contract. Actually, let's pull a couple in here. So I'm going to drag and drop these in here. And you'll see this is all, by the way, happening in real time. This is kind of the real agent at work here. And you'll see here that it's actually kind of processing these contracts. I expect these will take sort of 20 or 30 seconds to pull in. In addition to dragging and dropping, you can also kind of go into your settings here and see a forwarding email address. So you can take that and put it into your DocuSign or into your Salesforce and trigger contracts in automatically. So you'll see here a couple of these are still processing and a couple are now ready for review. And last one is coming in here. So essentially, as a human operator, I'll get flagged, I'll get notified when a contract has come in ready for review, and I can then jump in and review it. So you can see the audit trail here of the agent workflow that's being kicked off. A new contract came in, the agent has extracted the contract terms and flagged this for human operator review. So let's start by looking at what it's extracted. So it's kind of pulled out the customer information here. Fairly easy, standard for an LLM to do this. I expected that we should have high accuracy here. But then we come to pricing data. And what I really want to emphasize is that, LLMs can extract data and read text data and kind of, we've had OCR extraction for a long time. But what's really special about Sequence is under the hood here, we have a very powerful billing and pricing engine that can really understand every type of contract structure and billing model to be able to map what you're seeing in this contract to a structured set of pricing and billing data that's being extracted here. And so, example of this contract, there's a one-time setup fee. There's an API called a tiered usage-based pricing model here that seems to have a minimum commitment of $10,000. And then the inevitable contract nuances that you see. So there's a 1-month trial period in which API calls are free. Your first invoice will include the setup fee. And then after that, that discount in the first period, you're going to be charged for the API calls for the remainder of the contract period. This is by no means a complex contract, but I'm sure a lot of you will resonate with the fact that this is what contracts looks like. There are free trials and opt-outs and minimums that are included by sales team members. Sequence has our agent has extracted this information, so it's created this trial period here. You'll see for the first month, and then down here the remaining contract period, that remaining 23 months, and it's also extracted these pricing models with the minimums and discounts included. Because this is the first time I'm doing this, I'm actually going to attach a product to this, and this is kind of against the product catalog that I have in Sequence. Really, again, you're creating this kind of structured data set against what's being sold. So this is an implementation fee, and then I'm going to attach this to our API calls product. Agents learn every time you do something. So in future, it's going to recognize which product is actually associated with these pricing structures that have been shared. And if I kind of look at this here, you can see that these pricing tiers have been extracted perfectly. So in one click, and you can imagine this takes an operator 20 seconds or so. In one click, you can create billing against this contract. And once that subscription has been created, you'll see here, if I'm back in Watchtower, I can look at that subscription and again see these pricing terms with these kind of usage-based tiers as well, mapped perfectly in the subscription. I'm going to start billing this customer, and what this will then do is create the invoices against that subscription automatically. So we'll see here, it's actually drafted the invoices for me. And there's 2 invoices here. One is the setup fee that was initially included. So you can see this here. There's no usage-based charge yet. And you can kind of review and send that. And what you'll also see in here is a draft in an upcoming invoice, which has no usage associated with it yet. But once that usage is incurred, that invoice will naturally populate. Okay, we're on a clock. So next agent I wanted to showcase is our revenue recognition module and agent. So because Sequence obviously sees all of these custom contracts, we're able to automate your revenue recognition process. We're able to essentially extract the performance obligations from these contracts and create your journal reports automatically and kind of give you the recognized revenue schedule against each one of these customers. This is all clickable, drillable. You can see this at a customer level, at a product line item level as well. One thing I want to emphasize here is that it is not AI that is creating these schedules and creating these journal reports. There are some things that we don't trust LLMs to do yet. This is deterministic. This is robust and has to be accurate 100% of the time. But where we do see agents and LLMs being really helpful here is in interrogating this data and making sure that edge cases are handled as you would expect. So let's take an example customer here. I'm going to take incident and I'm going to click Ask AI. And you'll see here that the incident has been tagged. Again, this agent has full context on this customer, their contract, everything that they've done in sequence. Let's ask an example question. So let's say incident added 4 seats last month. How has my deferred revenue schedule changed in my list? And we've actually heard from our customers that often people will take a contract into GPT and sense check that the revenue recognition treatment is correct. And so here, essentially, you'll get an explanation from the AI. So you really have transparency around how revenue is being recognized. And of course, this is mapped with the chart of accounts in your ERP as well. And finally, and I'm going to try and do this in 1 minute, I'm really excited to share our Dunning agent, which is going to be launching in the next couple of months. And again, we think this is a really strong use case for agents to be supporting finance operators in what is otherwise a very manual and tedious process. So let's install my Dunning agent here. We want to give you a lot of transparency into what this agent is able to do, what permissions it has, and also what tools and systems it has access to. And again, you have flexibility on what you toggle on there. A lot of people will want emails sent directly from their email address, and so they'll use the Gmail integration here. Now, we have trained this agent with what we call system level instructions. So, this is what a Dunning agent should do, understands the domain and context of how it should operate. But of course, every company likes to follow up with customers and manage their DSO in a different way. And so you can generate your own custom instructions. I've put a prompt in here in natural language, pretty simple follow up 7 days, 14 days, 21 days after the due date, and kind of increase the verbiage of these or the intensity of these payment reminders. Our agent is going to take that and draft a proposed workflow for you and a set of emails that you can use to then follow up. So, here's an example. You can obviously review that copy and update it. But hey, this is fairly standard. We've seen AR tools that have deterministic workflows that you can build. What's really great about this is we think of this agent as an extension of your team. Like, imagine you're liaising or interfacing with literally like somebody who's on your team who's responsible for doing this. So Alan, my agent, is asking me, after the 21-day final notice, should we automatically close the account, or do you prefer another action? Oh, and by the way, do you want to send automatic payment reminders to all customers, or are there situations where I should hold off? And you, as the user, can really define what exceptions and edge cases and nuances you want to impose in this process. So here I'm going to say, don't close it automatically, flag it to me so I can write a message manually. I can follow up with this customer the way I need to. And don't send payment reminders if an invoice is over 100K or the customer signed up in the last 3 months. We've literally told our own team that don't send payment reminders to somebody who's new, they've just onboarded, and actually we want a softer approach here. And so Alan is thinking, Alan's recognized these instructions, and now I'm actually going to run Alan as an agent. He's summarizing the instructions he has, and obviously these can continue to be added to and iterated on. Okay, so we are running this agent. Again, we want to give you full transparency of what this agent is doing in real time. So literally as this agent is sending reminders, you're seeing that kind of happening. You're seeing every invoice that's being sent, every reminder that's being sent against every invoice. And what's great is that anything that's surfaced for your review will show up in Watchtower based on the custom instructions you've given Alan. So here I've been flagged this one because this is now 28 days late. So it's past my kind of deterministic workflow. So I can review the email that's drafted, edit it if I want, and send it. And then this other one's being flagged to me because the customer is late, but they are still kind of within 3 months of signing the contract. So I'm going to leave it there, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of a flavor of the ways we're embedding agents into our core finance workflows.
That is amazing. Very cool.
Thanks, Riya. And yeah, we've had a couple of questions flow in around how agents are being used for contract ingestion and dunning. So we've touched on 2 of them there. But in the interest of time, John, I'll pass over to you and then we can jump into the Q&A.
Amazing. Thank you all. Yeah, we started with AP, then we did a tour of how AI is impacting AR. Now we're going to talk about the general ledger. So I've got a few slides that I'm going to pull up, and then we will, of course, hop into a live demo. All right. So if you've never heard of Campfire before, just super quick overview, and then we're going to hop into some agentic use cases. But I'm the founder CEO, was previously a finance exec, and we were really struggling with our GL. And once we sold the company, I was like, gosh, why is there no modern general ledger out there? Why is there no ramp for accounting? Why is there no sequence for accounting? And so ultimately went through Y Combinator to build the ERP or the GL that I wish we were on as we scaled our company. And we're going to really focus on core accounting today. That's our general ledger, everything from multi-entity, multi-currency support. I saw a lot of international folks in the chat, so we are live in every continent today. And over to close management, approval workflows, whether it's like a Big Four audit or a public company or your very first transaction as a company, we've really seen folks scale and grow on the platform. Some of the fastest growing AI companies like Replit are on Campfire, over to Boom Arrow, which is reinventing commercial aviation. So for those in Amsterdam, I can get to you a little quicker. And so we're thrilled to be playing a very small part in the success of our customers. And a couple ways we're doing that and really rethinking workflows. One is on the left is embedded AI. And I'll show this use case first, which is like building everything in an AI native way. And so this is like going through every accounting workflow, whether it's accruals, bank rec, reviewing transactions, auditing human work, and just putting like front and center for all of these tasks. And then aptly named, given the Campfire name, Ember is our AI agent. That's our chat interface. And you can go in here and just query your data. You can have it, you can see some of the tasks it can do at the bottom here. Just very unstructured requests can go into Ember, where the embedded AI is more for like a structured workflow to give you superpowers on an existing task, like cash reconciliations. So let me pull up that example here. We, of course, have a ramp credit card as an example. And so the traditional way of doing bank reconciliations, of course, it comes in through the bank feed, and then you'll manually reconcile the transactions, particularly if you're in like a mid-market ERP. It's quite manual. And then at the end, you'll upload your PDF bank statement to confirm the work that you performed. In Campfire, when we means we put the PDF the record and parse page bank statement, and then it says here's all the messages, here's the two transactions we will watch. And so still allowing you to have this next use case. I'll hop into a live demo just on this, is auditing human work. So I think all of us are saying like, how do we close the month faster while maintaining a high degree of accuracy? And I think everyone has lean teams. We're being told like, hey, you're not getting any more headcount, but the business might be doubling year over year. And so it's like, how do we really like meet, how do we have these like hard parameters of growing fast, but limited human hour capacity? And so one thing we've seen AI do a great job at is auditing human work before you lock the period. So I know transactions come in from Ramp perfectly given Ramp's AI, but we'll even have our own AI agent like review the work of the other AI agent coming out of Ramp. And so it could be coded in Campfire, it could be an intercode transaction. And so with that, I'm just going to go ahead and pull up a few live examples. This is just a live example of that audit. And what it's doing here is it's saying like, let's look at insurance. And this was coded to software. Like Allstate is not a software vendor. And it even went in and it did let me hide this, a risk level for us. So it looks like we incorrectly coded a transaction. And then there's other things it can do as well. Like there's an elimination entry. And let me do, I was just looking for one that I had up here earlier. But essentially, someone booked payroll to elimination entry. And so we're like, gosh, here we go. This one I was looking for. Payroll was booked to an elimination entity. And so it's like, well, that's not correct. So it's performing like a human level review of the work. Another thing is writing Flux commentary. Like back in the day, we used to write so many notes on all the work, all of the changes in the account, whether it's at a vendor level, GL code level, department level. I was talking to a finance leader the other day, and they're like, they're a little bit of an extreme example, but they were like, years of my life has gone into writing Flux commentary. And so what we can do here, because Campfire has all of the core financial data, it'll comb through all the metadata, whether it's a description, whether it's a memo, whether it's a transaction, and we're securely feeding it into Gen AI. And in this case, you can see here, I asked it to do a variance materiality threshold of 5% and $2,000. And then it went through just in those couple seconds there, went through all the transactions in this account and then wrote us a first pass at our commentary. And we can, of course, you can see Airbnb, Figma. We can export this, and it's not intended to be like a final draft. It's really like a good first draft. And as a first draft, you can, again, take it out, make some tweaks, and then post into Campfire's close checklist. So speeding up that month-end work of writing the commentary. And then I've got another one I'm going to do. And I talked to so many accountants, and they're like, "Hey, writing accruals is is like the least favorite part of the close." And so we're going to do two quick accrual examples. One is we've got a PO that has not hit AP yet, and so we need to go ahead and draft an accrual here. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this AWS bill and it includes some AWS Marketplace items. And it's going to go through and review the PDF. It's reading it. And then it's starting to pull the vendor data, information on AWS to make sure we code it to the right vendor. And one thing that accountants have really told us is like, I don't fully trust AI yet. And so how we've built this is we ask you to treat it like a member on your team. And we've built it as if it's a member on your team. So it's going to go ahead and show all of its work. And it's going to save a unique URL that we can link to on this accrual that it's drafting. And then ultimately it's going to like have all of the source data. And so I can go in here and we can take a look. And I'll give it a second to process here. But with all the source data, from an audit perspective, auditors love that it's fully encompassed within the ERP, because then at that point, we're able to always link back in an audit and see it within the system. And I'll give it another minute to go ahead and load here. As I had one other example while it's going. The other accrual is many folks say, hey, we don't have a PO for this item. It's just we're always waiting on the legal bill to come, and we always just put a 3-month trailing average. And so Gunderson Detmer is an example law firm, and it went in here, and it's going to go ahead and show its work. So here's the plan. And then it's going to go and look through the 3 months. And like I said earlier, here is the subledger for all the Gunderson Detmer activity. And you can see this 22,000, there's 22,000 here. We can, of course, download and run our own analysis. And then what it did for us is it showed the work for the items here. And we've got our drafted accrual. And so I can go ahead and it drafted the accrual. It put in the 3 month trail in terms of how we got here. And we can go ahead and post. And so we just posted all the way through to the ledger. All right, let's go ahead and check back on this one. And it drafted it took the PO and it drafted everything for us. And again, we can go in and post. It went and found the correct department, found the vendor. And so we're taking these closed tasks and we're preparing everything for you while still allowing you to be in full control, while still allowing you to have full segregation of duties from an audit perspective, from an IPO readiness perspective. So we can leverage AI, but still really learn to trust the AI, whether it's drafting an entry like we just did, whether it's auditing work or financial analysis. So I think with that, I'm going to pause, and I know we wanted to open it up for Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And I know we can't see the crowd here, but I know when we did our panel last week, there was a lot of nodding heads in the room when you made the point on accruals and that being the most painful part of month end. So I'm sure it's the same with the group we have here. Yeah, we have 7 questions that have come in now, 8. So I'm going to try and blend maybe some of those that we had prepared and then just open up to the room. So one of the points that has come up, I think, across each of these workflows is where you actually see the human in the loop for the foreseeable future versus where you're willing to let an agent run autonomously. And like, how do you think about the division between those tasks? I think a lot of finance operators are really want to think about like where is the human being inserted in these workflows versus where you're willing to let them be hands off. So maybe Dave, we can start with AP and procurement with ramp and then yeah, follow the order of the demos.
Yeah, off. Here, you guys can hear me now? All right, sweet.
Yeah.
Totally agree. There is going to be a level of trust that you as a controller, as a finance leader, are going to want to put into these systems before giving them more access to more tools and access to make those decisions. So for low risk, repeatable workflows, right? Things that take up a lot of time, but each individual decision is low risk or not as material. That is a great place to first implement kind of the help me do it framework and then the do it for me, right? Putting in those controls. I think what you've seen from everybody here today is that the agent is going to explain exactly what they're doing, the context that it has, the tools that it's deploying, and giving you that auditability so you can build that trust over time. Think about it with like a new employee on your team. The first week, you're going to review their work. They're going to explain what they're doing. You're going to build that trust with that employee. Then you're going to give them more freedom to work autonomously. I think you should do the same thing with agents. And then for really high risk or judgment heavy decisions, that's maybe over a certain amount or certain materiality. Of course, capital allocation and strategic finance. That's the type of stuff where you might want the agent to help you with contacts and help you think through that judgment decision, but ultimately have a human in the loop to kind of make that final decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Rhea.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I saw both John and Rhea nodding along to that as well. And there was a question in the chat around, who you see the main user being. So maybe like in follow up to Dave's point, like would also be useful to think about and share with the group, like who do you actually see as the main human in the loop from a persona perspective? Like what hires are typically being tasked with being the human in the loop for your specific workflows?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I agree with everything Dave said. Treat it like an employee, really review its work. All of us have built it where it shows attribution and source data. But I think like AI is certainly getting much stronger and stronger with finance and accounting data. And so I'd encourage everybody to start finding ways to incorporate it into your workflows, even if you're not ready for full autonomous agents, maybe co-pilot mode, as Dave showed on that slide. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's how we're thinking about it at Campfire.
Actually, was thinking something, Dave, while you were speaking. I think like we've all, created these agents in AI with like a ton of control and auditability because our inherent assumption is obviously that, AI can hallucinate and like anywhere where they're taking on tasks, we want to make sure that, the human is in the loop. And then that varies depending on task type. As you said, there are some low risk things that actually a little bit more autonomy is fine. But one thing that I found, like what I was thinking about kind of is looking at these things is like humans make a ton of mistakes too. Like there's, the number of customers we speak to where they have literally like underbilled a quarter of revenue or like missed that minimum on that, on that contract or treated something as 26 months as opposed to 27 months and it's messed up rubric. I actually think like, one thing AI is actually very good at is like pattern detection and spotting things and with how many people have invoices sitting in their inbox that actually like are overdue and they haven't checked because they've just missed following up on it. So I do think we talk a lot about control and oversight, and obviously that's imperative, but I think it's also really important to remember that like if done well and if embedded well, these agents can really aid a human operator to just sense check and spot and double check things that like they just otherwise might have missed.
Totally. And that'll free us all up, right? Once we are deploying agents and we are orchestrating these agents on our team, that frees us up to do more higher order strategic work as people. But to your point, like even today with autonomous driving, right? We know that per mile, there are less accidents amongst autonomous driving than humans, right? It's because humans get tired, humans make mistakes at a higher rate than these agents or these AI do. So like finding that balance between control and then efficiency. You don't want the human to be too much of a blocker that you are actually slowing business down when you could be moving much faster with the AI, even if it's off every so often.
And I guess something to add here is that like because we're building products in the financial operations domain, like only like 0% error is the only thing that's acceptable. Like even 1% error on things like, journal report creation or, billing calculation is a non-negotiable for our customers. And so like we will naturally embed excessive control and oversight into the work that these agents are kind of aiding. But I will say, like, I'm personally humbled by seeing like the evolution in performance, even through like testing periods as we look at, things like dunning or contract extraction. Like, the system, of course, naturally learns when you quote 100 contracts or have 1,000 transactions which have the same structure. Naturally, the system is learning. And I really do see a place where we get to a point where when you've reviewed, 200 things that are correct, you do feel comfortable moving to a slightly lower degree of oversight and actually saying, actually now only flag 10% of things to me, as you said, as opposed to, 60% of things.
I think when we talk about agents, one of the challenges inherent in building agentic workflows is surfacing the required context so that the agents can actually behave accurately and reliably. And what's interesting is a lot of the workflows that were demonstrated here today have benefits across the workflows. Like if you set approval rules for AP that can flow through to procurement, the same agents that run on billing are going to support RevRec. Transaction matching that you're doing in your ERP will likely support future matching that happens in the following month close. Curious, like maybe we can start with Ramp, given you've been around for the longest, but how do you maybe think about like maybe even the competitive advantage that you have being kind of multi-product, the context that you have across these modules, and do you think about this in the context of like portability with other systems as well, maybe flowing into the ERP or the accounts receivable side? But yeah, I'd love to hear you all chew on that.
Let me answer that first part first, which is with LLMs, you have to kind of give it three things. You have to give it a prompt and context, right? You have to give it access to tools if it's an agent, and then you have to give it an expected outcome, right? These are all the things that you need to give. You would have to give them to a human as well, someone on your team. You have to give them those same types of things, but that's what you have to give an LLM for it to perform. And the closer you are to the transaction, the much more context you will have. So when you think of like accounting like a pyramid, you have the transaction layer on the bottom, then you have month end close, then you have reporting, then you have strategic finance at the top. Most of the work and the time goes into that transaction layer. But if you have a good base on that pyramid, it allows you to do really strong month-end close and reporting, and then of course make really good strategic finance decisions. And so Ramp, because we are the transaction layer, we have so much information close to the PDF, close to the receipt, close to the invoice. We have all of that context. Of course, when we sync that information over to, let's say, a Campfire or to another ERP, no matter what, even if we send as much information as possible, there's going to be some loss of information of that context every time you move from one system to the next. Now, we want to share as much information downstream so that those systems can, of course, use that information, that context in their decisions and their processes as well. But I do think that Ramp and Sequence and Campfire, the closer you are to the transaction, the more context you have, which means the better you will be at kind of doing those up pyramid functions like month-end close and reporting, and ultimately strategic decision making, because you have all of that context in there.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Dave. For us, like being the general ledger, we of course pull in AR, AP, sales tax, all sorts of data sets. Sequence and Ramp would theoretically have stronger agents for their own respective data sets. And then if you're looking for like a holistic picture, like, hey, show me, customer level P&L or something, or you need like revenue and expense data, then that's really our right to win as the GL from a agentic workflow. So whether it's reporting or we just looked at auditing the close, those are spots where we think we can add a ton of value if it's, taking an invoice and reading it and doing an agentic dunning or something. We think you all are probably the best place to do that.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, super, super well said. I think it's like you're right that, the performance and success of the agent, the LLM, is predicated on obviously what you specialize in, how you've built your data model, how your system of record and what it understands best. I do sometimes think about like maybe how if we play this out, a few years. So today we all have these agents conducting single task, very specific workflows, within our systems. And my sense is, they're semi-autonomous for the most part. That's probably where we're going to be in the near term. And then I think step two is we move to slightly less kind of assisted and maybe more autonomous single task workflows. And then from there, potentially multi-step, more autonomous workflows within your platform. But I do think there's potentially a point where an agent in Sequence is interacting with an agent in Campfire and exchanging some relevant contextual information to ensure that, the synchronization of data or whatever agent John wants to run in Campfire is able to run successfully. And personally, that's why I'm really excited to partner with, let's say, like modern CFO stack players, because I do think that today, okay, this is confined to single step, tasks in your own systems, but I see this happening within the next 5 years.
Riya, I couldn't agree more. And not only because today, as a human, you have to context switch from like one system to the next, right? And I think our agents will have to be able to do that. Work with other systems, work with other agents, share the context, share the data, but more importantly, share the memory, right? Because as you do these transactions, your agents build up memory, just as a human does, right? I remember every transaction that I've done and why I did it, right? I keep that memory and then it helps me make better decisions. That memory is going to be built in. So you have the prompt, you have the context, and you have all this memory of the transactions that the agent has done. And you're going to want to share that memory like downstream with your GL, right? To Campfire, for example, so that when you're doing flux analysis, it not only has the data that Campfire has, but it has all the memory and kind of the context that came from upstream from a different system.
Completely. And I think just the way in which we have now this very well built out integration ecosystem, that exists today, something similar will be, will be created at the infrastructure layer to support that sort of agent exchange of information.
Yeah, you're starting to see this with MCPs.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm not technical enough to know if like the evolution of MCP will be as we describe, or if it's going to be has to be some or, other protocol. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ria, you touched on a comment there around what's going to happen in the next 5 years. I think a last question that I'll ask in the final few minutes here, and maybe we'll reverse the order, go John, Ria, then Dave, will be, if you look 2 years down the line, do you see a scenario, or do you think you'll have a picture where a company can IPO with one finance operator supported by agents? And if not, I guess where do you see maybe that bottleneck being, to having a company go public with just one finance operator?
It's a great question. I don't know whether it's 2 years or something further out, but I do see that into the future. Where I think like inherently speaking, like the further up you go on an org chart, the more general in nature you become. And so if there's an agent now sitting underneath everybody, you go from doing data entry to data review, and then as the agents get more powerful, there was a question in the chat about looks like the human in the loop is quite limited in the workflows we saw. We're talking about human in the loop, but it was really handling like an exception scenario. It's like a very thin version of human in the loop. And so I think we'll certainly need somebody handling human in the loop for quite a bit of time because, AI, there's hallucinations and it's not perfect yet. There's always the exceptions. Um, but what would be the challenge would be in a SOX environment like Campfire's in, I think all of us are as a vendor, is quite intense from a controls perspective and from a segregation of duty where you really need two humans, one drafting, one reviewing everything. And so in that theoretical world, there's two humans required. It's hard to have one. So I think it's actually auditors getting comfortable with the agent being one of the two. And from like a SOX environment, I haven't fully seen us get there yet, but to me, that would be the barrier for the solo employee at the public company. But I would love to hear everyone else's hot take on this.
Yeah, I think not much to add. I think principally I agree with you. I think this extreme position of one is obviously kind of set up to make the question more interesting.
Yeah.
Like I do think, small teams are able to work and create in ways that, one person can't. And I think there's enough variety within a finance function that actually, like even if you're just talking about that top of the pyramid piece, there is potentially benefit to having, two or three people in a team. But do I think that ratio is going to change substantially? Today you've got companies getting ready for IPO who might have, 30, 40 people in their finance team. I do think that's going to look very different in a very short space of time.
I would agree as well. I think you'll see. I think technically it will be possible, but for regulatory segregation of duties, SOX reasons,
Just work enjoyment generally. I don't know, it'd be a little lonely, coming in every day and.
But I think you'll see it for private companies first, smaller teams. Public companies will get smaller as well, but will still need a relatively larger team, just much smaller and core than before. And then humans will be orchestrating all of these agents instead of doing the work, the transactional work. They'll be orchestrating and making capital allocation decisions, strategic finance decisions. The the human element of decision making, of telling stories, that type of work for finance teams will continue to do.
Well, whenever it does happen, I'm sure a campfire ramp sequence combination will probably be under the hood somewhere. So if anyone is thinking about that, feel free to reach out to any of the three panelists, and I'm sure we can look at a unified offer here as well. Conscious we're at time, want to be respectful of the time everyone has given us. So we'll wrap it here. Thanks so much, John, Dave, Riya, for the time and for a very engaging discussion. And please, if anyone has any follow-up questions, I think we didn't get to all of the Q&A, please follow up. I know some of these are company specific. We're more than happy to get on a call, answer any of those questions async. But thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
joining.
Dan.
Bye, John. Bye, Dave.
Bye.